Well, Razorback fans, it was another banner Thanksgiving weekend for all the athletics. It wasn't at all. Arkansas loses to Missouri, and we just got to talk about what the crap is going on right now.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. You can start this season as well with a big return on FanDuel because new customers that place a $5 bet, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, which if you're a Razorback sports fan, it's hard to really be excited about everything right now. You lose in men's basketball, you lose in women's basketball, and you lose in football. And yay. We'll talk a little bit about the situation right now with Sam Pitman and Arkansas and everything, because it is a weird deal. But I am going to recap this game a little bit, because Arkansas did lose, once again, 28-21 to Missouri. They had a lead in this game, and one that felt like they could at least take advantage of. In fact, going into the fourth quarter, Arkansas was leading this game by 14-10. Still very much in their grasp, and Arkansas finished with 21 points, but they allowed Missouri to score 18 points in the fourth quarter alone. Just unable to really get anything going. And, you know, we can sit here and talk about all the what could have done right and could have done wrong, whatever it is. But the deal is that Arkansas failed to do the simple things right. Taylon Green was not bad. Quinton Jackson was not bad. The defense was not bad. Had nothing to do with just the collective units and being like this part of the team was what caused this. It was very simple things, as in two fumbles that led to two scores by Missouri. Missouri didn't turn the ball over once. There you go. Arkansas had 10 penalties in this game. There you go. Arkansas actually did really good for the most part in keeping. They had, I think, one big play that was given up that only led to a field goal. But it was just the times in which Arkansas needed it the most, needed a stop the most, needed a play to go their way. It just didn't happen. You know, I think to a time which this game was in the snow, which was always a really cool thing because you don't get to see it very often. But I think back to, I believe it was after Arkansas take the lead 14-7, and they were kicking it off to Missouri, and Missouri fumbled. But unfortunately, they got it back. And it just makes you think, man, if they could have just recovered that, what that could have done. Because if I'm not mistaken, that was also a drive that Missouri ended up scoring a touchdown in. So you're talking about just the little things that could have changed this game, because Arkansas outgained Missouri. They definitely did a better job in the passing game. Did not commit as many third downs. They were 3 of 11. Missouri was 6 of 15. I mean, the stat sheet itself was not bad. Not the box score was a problem or anything. It just came down to the really small things, the penalties and the turnovers. Now, some of you may take that as me just sitting back and saying, oh, well, you know, just a couple tweaks here and there, and you win this game. But that's not how I'm looking at it, because this is a constant thing. It is a constant thing for the Razorback football team. How many times, not only this year, but over the past few years, how many times have we come together on this podcast and said, you know, if you just didn't do this one thing or this thing, or maybe just this thing and this thing, you'd win the game? It's pretty much every loss that Arkansas takes. I mean, there were some losses this year that Arkansas were not in no matter what. Like Ole Miss beat the brakes off of them. LSU game was not close. But you think back to Oklahoma State. You think back to Texas A&M. Those types of games, you're just like, and even Texas, same way. If you just do one or two things differently, it's a whole different season. And just think about the vibe of everything. Think about how much better it would be. Because I'm not taking anything away from the Tennessee win this year. It was a great win, a huge win. But even y'all remember, Arkansas was only up 3-0 at halftime, and they should have been up by 17. Like, they had opportunities they kept squandering with turnover on downs, on fourth down, with bad plays, whatever it was. Missed field goals. They had opportunities. They just didn't take advantage of them. So even in the game you won, you still squandered a lot. And that inevitably is the biggest problem of what this team has been so far this year, but also in the tenure of Sam Pitman, which we'll talk about as far as the future goes. But Razorback fans have every right to be frustrated. You sit there and you be like, this some people who are out there saying 6-6, 3-5 you should be considering this a successful year, because Vegas had Arkansas only at 4.5 wins, and Arkansas did better than that. So you should be thrilled. You should be fine. And I just want to strangle somebody when they say that. I want to punch a baby when people say that. I'm kidding, but still. It is the most asinine, ridiculous comment. If anybody sits back, and anybody of note, and I'm talking about media members, I'm talking about former players, I'm talking about administrators, whoever, if they look at you and look you straight in the eye, or in most cases on Twitter, and come out and say, hey, you went 6-6, 3-5 in SEC play. You went 2-4 in the second half of the season. You didn't win a single one of your trophy games, which is now the third year in a row for not winning a trophy game. You should be happy. I mean, come on. What'd you expect? A good team? Please. Come on. You don't need to expect that. It's an infectious disease that has spread its way into, for whatever reason, the excuse making has gotten out of hand. And I'm probably gonna do a podcast on this at some point in time. A lot of you may have saw my tweets, I should say, over I think it was Friday or maybe Saturday. I can't remember which days they'll get mixed up, but still talking about the disconnect of the fan base. And I'll probably talk about that tomorrow unless anything else crazy happens or anything breaks. But this was just a bad year. You know, I said before the season started, and I'm on record of saying this, when people would ask me, what does Sam Pitman need to do to keep his job? In my opinion, I said he needed to go 7-5. 6-6 would not do it. That's how I felt then, and that's how I feel now. 6-6, there's no reason that this team went 6-6. They were better than a 6-6 team. But coaching problems ended up being the ultimate result. And who knows what this offseason is going to look like, folks. Like, there could be coaches moving on. Travis Williams, Bobby Petrino, they could be moving on. I know people's got some skepticisms right here, because right now, at least where it stands at the time of the recording of this podcast, there's been some reports about Bobby Petrino being a finalist for the Charlotte's job as the head coach, I believe. So, you know, who's to say that? And I still think Travis Williams, UCF, Gus Malzahn left to be the offensive coordinator of Florida State. He left his head coaching position to be the offensive coordinator. And so who knows? Maybe Travis Williams gets a call to go back to UCF. Maybe that what happens, or into that area, because I know he's familiar with the Florida area. Maybe. But still, there's just a lot of uncertainties going on and where everything's at. But the point is, this year should have been better, and it wasn't. And it was just such a poetic thing to end it against Missouri, which, people know how Razorback fans feel about Missouri, and I appreciate all you Missouri fans watching and commenting, and really the horrible things that you said about me and my family in my Twitter DMs. Those are always nice. Appreciate you. You guys are classy. But also, Drinkwitz coming out after the game saying, like, I meant no disrespect to Taylon Green. And I told him that. It was just like they made a bunch of big deal out of me mispronouncing his name. I was like, dude, you did that on purpose, and no one's stupid. There's a Y in there. It would have been one thing if you would have said Taylon Green. Like, that would have been okay, but you said Talon. The guy's been playing football in the SEC for 11 games, and come on now. But that's neither here nor there. They won the game. They went 9-3. Congratulations to them. They get to keep a trophy that they don't care about. But still, this was not a good year for Arkansas. It's not a good year for Razorback fans. And it's just not a good vibe right now. Vibes are not high. And they shouldn't be. And I'm really getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of the lack of communication. I need to save this. I need to save this because this needs to be a whole new podcast tomorrow or sometime this week to really dive into it because I want to, and I feel like it's important for Razorback fans to really have a place to where their frustrations can be appreciated instead of deterred, instead of made fun of, being like, "Oh, you idiot fans! What do you think?" I mean, we've been told the national media has been marveling over the job Sam Pitman's done, and man, you should just see what's going on. How great this is! Wow, the bowl game, going to a bowl game means everything to this team. I'm done with it. But what I'm not done is talking about the future of Sam Pitman and why I feel like there could be some reasons besides the obvious as to why it could be in jeopardy. We'll talk about that and more, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, I know you like to get ready and get out there to tackle the NFL as well as college football action with FanDuel, which is America's number one sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your bets live on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. You know, the future of Sam Pitman, a lot of you want him gone, and I understand it. And, you know, people have brought up to me about, oh, maybe he retires and he steps down, which is something I'm not going to take credit for me, like being the only one that said it, but I predicted this back in the summertime where I was feeling like that would be something that could happen. He retires, he rides off to the sunset, gets the program back into a better spot. And then somebody else comes in and kind of picks up where he left off. My vote was always Barry Odom, still a Barry Odom guy. But I'm not saying that it won't happen, but I'm just saying that it was a pretty bold prediction back then, and it's still a bold prediction now. There's no evidence leaning towards one way or the other. But folks, this could get really weird and honestly could get a lot worse before it gets better this offseason with the transfer portal and with everything. I have no guarantees that Bobby Petrino and Travis Williams are going to be your coordinators next year. You know, we've already mentioned the fact that Petrino was in talks with the possible Charlotte job, which, man, that would be something to go from being, you felt like he wanted to stay as offense coordinator at Arkansas, and he's not. In fact, somebody sent me a picture of Bobby Petrino coming off of an airplane in Charlotte just the other day. So it's like, oh, so there must be at least something to it, perhaps. And then you had a deal where Travis Williams was a hot commodity as it is, and now, he may look at it as like, do I really want to be back next year where it looks like it all could go awry and everything's going to move on, like all of that. He may move on. He may get a gig. He may get a head coaching spot. Maybe somebody like a UAB calls, or maybe somebody like UCF. Somebody, I don't know. There's nothing set in stone as far as who he would take or where he would go, but the possibilities are certainly there. So you have all these things going on to where you could lose, theoretically, both your coordinators. And folks, you're losing the majority of your wide receivers. You are losing your star running back. You are losing, I think, at least one offensive lineman. I think Josh Braun's probably going to move on. They haven't said one way or the other, but I assume he's probably going to move on. And then defensively, you're having to replace a lot of big-time defensive linemen, which hopefully Landon Jackson ends up being okay. I know that was a scary moment in the game. They said that there's good reports from it, which is great to hear. But, you got to replace a lot of D linemen. You're going to have to replace a lot of secondary players. So there's a lot to replace. Well, the thing is that right now, we've been told At first, it was like, oh, man, the NIL's gotten better. The NIL's gotten better. The NIL's gotten better. And it's like, okay, yes, it has. However, like we talked about the other day, and that so many people thought I misconstrued Sam Pitman's comments, which I didn't. But when he was asked point blank, is the NIL better? Is it going to be? And he's like, no, it's just we're going to be able to combine it with the revenue sharing that's coming in. Which, yes, theoretically and technically that does make it better, but it's not coming from NIL. It's more coming from the revenue sharing, which is something that everybody's going to go through. So if you're having to hit the portal that hard, and there's chances that you miss out on one, maybe possibly two of your coordinators, the schedule gets exponentially more difficult next season. Like, what is the point of all this? Where is this going? What's the end game here? What's the trajectory? Because if you went with a much easier schedule, with the two coordinators that are actually really good, and I've still been really impressed by them. I still like to have them back next year, assuming Sam Pitman's the coach. Like all of that, it came together. You got better offensively with the running back, with wide receivers, with linemen. Like you improved that part of it. I felt the defense was much better than I anticipated. But, you know, at the end of the day, you got to win games. The point is, if you had all of that this year, where's the thing you point to say, it's going to be just as good, if not better, next year? Honestly asking, where do you point to? If you're able to keep both your coordinators, okay, that's something that you can build upon. If you're going all in on Taylor Green, okay, you can build upon that. If you're able to keep some players that possibly might be looking to transfer, you know, like a Jalen Braxton, he hadn't played at all, but you know, could he stick around, or is he wanting to transfer? I don't know, but you know, if you're able to go in and say, hey, we're keeping both our coordinators, we're keeping Jalen Braxton here, we're able to keep a Cam Ball here, Savian Sori on the defensive side, and then offensively, if you can go out there and keep the vast majority of our offensive linemen, if not all of them, because all of them can come back. Luke Has, you keep him, you know, some key proponents like that, then I can at least get down with and saying, okay, it's a good base, it's a good foundation, but what do you do in the portal to make it that much better? Which you'd have to do. Like, this is a process. It's not simple, just, trust me, because there's no trust. The trust is gone. It is out the window. There's no trust. You have to actually prove yourself. And if you're going to count on people to try to believe in you, you got to have some sort of evidence other than just trust me. And the only way to do that in the offseason is by providing continuity, providing energy, providing some big players coming out of the portal, providing that. Folks, a year ago, it wasn't there. The only excitement that people had was the Bobby Petrino element. Well, that's over and done with after a year. So where's your excitement? Where's your energy going to come from? Where are going to be the things that you point to and why people should renew their season tickets? Why people should be excited about the team? Why people should believe that you, Sam Pitman, are the right guy for the job? What are you going to point to? And some of you may say, like, none of that matters. It's just about winning. Yes, that's true. But energy and confidence and excitement matters. And folks, this ain't it. Some of you have accused me also of saying, oh, you're just listening to the people on Twitter. Folks, I talk to people all the time from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds about the Razorbacks who are Razorback fans. Yes, I talk to a lot of people on Twitter. I talk to a lot of people who are in my live streams who do things with Inside Arkansas. I talk to people who listen to this podcast. I talk to boosters. I talk to donors. I talk to people within the administration. I talk to Razorback Foundation people. I talk to former players. I talk to current players on occasion. I talk to everybody. So I'm not basing this off of nothing. I'm not basing this off of just a couple of, moronic, pissed off gomers that are on Twitter. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm basing this off of real conversations I've had with real people about real things. And the vibe ain't it. It's not there. And the future of Sam Pitman, It's just hard for me to really find something to say, hey, this is why it's going to be okay. Because that's what Razorback fans need right now. They need something positive. They just don't have it. And they deserve it. But if you can't come out with confidence and say, here's why, here it is, here's some evidence as why is it going to be better, then why should anybody believe you? The SEC's crazy, though. SEC's wild. And it sucks because we now know the SEC title game and it doesn't make me happy. But we'll talk about that and more coming up next. So stay with us on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, I know a lot of you are always looking to go to different sporting events. In fact, some of you may be pumped up about the bowl game, whatever Arkansas ends up with, whether it's in Memphis or in Birmingham or something also really, really cool. You're going to be looking to take tickets to that game. Well, what better way to do it than the GameTime app? There'll be some Razorback basketball games, too. I think that game up in Madison Square Garden, New York City, ever heard of it? It's going to be here before you know it. In fact, it's a week from tomorrow. Sheesh. So, yeah, it's coming along fast. Get you some tickets to all these sporting events that you're going to go to. But make sure you do it through the GameTime app, where you get a panoramic view of all the seats that you can choose from right there in the app so you can see what your view is going to look like. You also get the lowest price guaranteed, or GameTime will credit you with 110% of the difference. And they also have the all-in pricing feature, which is my favorite thing. You hit the toggle on that feature, and it'll show you all the prices up front. No hidden fees where you go through a few steps and end up paying double. It's like, no, what is the price of this with after all the fees, everything right there? Let's see it. They have that for you as well. So this goes for sports, it goes for concert, it goes for comedy, it goes for theater, it goes for everything that you need a ticket for. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime Picks. GameTime app is something you download and you create an account, and you can use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So the SEC and the title game has been set. It's freaking Texas, man. Texas and Georgia. It sucks that Texas got in there their first year in the SEC, but it's not, I mean, sometimes it is the way it is. They played their game against Texas A&M, and they won 17-7. And I got to give them credit because that was in College Station, Kyle Field, yeah. So, yeah, it was there. The atmosphere was off the charts. It was a night game. It's the first time the two teams have met in over a decade. Like the odds was stacked against the Longhorns, but the Longhorns responded with a win. That's really their only quality win of the season. They have not really looked good in other times, but what they get in return for that for the SEC title game is they get to play Georgia. You know, Georgia, the team that just smoked Texas at home in there in Austin. And so they get a little rematch here. So I'll be curious to see what happens with Georgia in this game, because Georgia, to be honest, should have lost to Georgia Tech. Like, that game was wild, absolutely wild. For those of you who may not watch that game, I don't know what Georgia was doing if they were just sleepwalking, but you got to give Georgia Tech credit. But this game went to multiple overtimes. I think it was 4 overtimes is what it ended up being. So just nonsensical craziness. But because of that, Georgia is not only in the SEC title game, which they would have been in anyways, but still in their own, controlling their own destiny of the college football playoff, which we'll see what the rankings look like. But the final standings, Texas finishes with the best record in the SEC. They went 7-1. 7-1. Again, they didn't have any quality wins. Texas A&M was their best win. But after that, you got Georgia and then Tennessee, both tied at 6-2. Then you have Alabama, South Carolina, A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri all at 5-3. So a lot of 5-3 teams. You got Florida at 4-4, and then Arkansas at 3-5 with Vanderbilt at 3-5. Oklahoma and Auburn at 2-6. Kentucky at 1-7, and poor Mississippi State going 0-8. So that's your final standings there for the SEC. A lot of mixing up there. And I'll tell you this, I think Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee are the only SEC teams that are for sure in the college football playoff. And to be honest, I think they're the only ones that deserve to be. People are bringing up South Carolina. South Carolina did all right, but I just don't know. Like, if you're not going to have more than 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff, are you? I mean, there's only 12 that you can take, and if you're going to take 4, which one of those 5-3 teams? You're going to take South Carolina or Bama because those are 9-3 teams. Which ones are you going to take? I mean, South Carolina's trying to make a case for it, and I get it, but I just don't think it's there. I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough for you to justify truly getting into the college football playoff. So guess we'll see, but that's your final standings. Arkansas was picked to finish 15th. Well, they technically finished 12th. No, they finished 11th. So there's that, right? Progress. Be happy. Be happy, folks. It's the way you should be. You should be excited. Oh, this is going to be a tough offseason, folks. It's going to be tough. But hey, I appreciate you all anyways. Appreciate you listening in, watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.